Speaking of being humble, Man United lost at the weekend. In fact, Man United got conceded 3 goals. 2 of them, I'm not going to lie, 2 of the worst mistakes I've ever seen by Man United players in my life. Still don't know what. I think Mark Goldbridge explained it the best about 09. He looked like a man drunk falling over outside a pub for no reason. Just fell out of the way of the ball. KJ did try and blame it on the wind, but we wouldn't allow him to do that on the show. He didn't really. He actually said maybe he was trying to judge the ball differently because of the wind and got it wrong. He didn't say the wind was the reason. He still blamed the goalkeeper. And then I still don't, up to this day, understand what Lisandro Martinez was doing. I've watched that goal 100 times, and I know Chris Wood's on good goal scoring form, but it wasn't a goal scoring header. It was a good cross, a bang average header that bounced 3 times before going in slow motion. I'm fuming, but it's led to a mad situation for Man United. We've seen Dan Ashworth be fired, which is what we're going to start on. Now already there's fans questioning whether 3 at the back works, talking about we're not winning enough games. But I wanted to start off with the Dan Ashworth situation. A lot of stick for Man United because he has now been sacked. I'm going to throw it out to the panel. Thoughts?
I think it was a good sacking. I think I saw a report saying that he was in disagreement with bringing in Amorim and he wanted Southgate. So off that basis alone, he deserved to be fired. The only problem that I have is...
Could that be PR though, Will? Could that be PR?
An Arsenal fan asking that question
I'm asking a question. I'm just asking a question.
I have no idea what you just said, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
No, that's it. That the way they let that story come out, could that just be PR? Just so they can
nah, because I remember when you guys first got him, like that was a thing that, and I think that's why Southgate was, I think, one of the favorites for the job, even before Ten Hag was sacked, was because of the Dan Ashworth connection there. So I believe the report. So for me, I would have sacked him as well. But I think the issue is United probably should have never hired him, and it does look bad considering you guys had to like negotiate, and there was like a little bit of a saga trying to get him out of Newcastle. But I do like, in terms of if you're a United fan, right? I get that this could maybe cause you to be a little bit skeptical about like Ineos, but I do like that Jim Ratcliffe, right? Because I think he made the decision. I like how quickly he acted once he felt like this wasn't going to work anymore. Because I feel like if that was the Glazers still that were doing the footballing operations, they would have just waited and then waited and waited and waited, and then things just wouldn't have worked out. And then now you're making this move, let's say 18 months from now, when the problem could have probably been solved immediately. So, yeah, I don't really see the problem like with that, like at all. I don't think it's going to necessarily affect anything. And again, Southgate's an awful manager. So the fact that if that report's true, that that's who he wanted to be the manager, he should have been sacked before Amorim got in once he suggested it.
One thing I will say is that I got a lot of flack a couple of weeks ago when it was Terry and Staffy on the show, because I said that I think Man United will have to go backwards before they go forwards. And I'm right, because you're going backwards currently. The way that things are going, it just reminds me of us when we brought in, I can't remember the fella's name, from Leipzig, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is the guy. He got this player. He got that player," and then 5 months later, he was gone. So it doesn't shock me. That again, it's a new rebuild. So you're not going to get everything right straight away. You're probably going to sign some really bad players. You probably will. You're probably going to make loads more like mistakes. But that's part of the growing pains of bringing in a brand new regime. So it's not a shock. However, you will go backwards before you
people don't realise how big of a job that is at Man United. Like that, they're not going to be challenging in 18 months or so. That is the biggest job in the Premier League. And they're going to get a lot of things wrong and they're going to get a lot of things right. But understanding what the actual goal is and how to get to the goal as the best way should be the main objective. But for Dan Ashworth to want Southgate over Amorim, yeah, I agree with Will on this. If that was what he wanted, then yeah, it's best to get rid. But like everyone's saying United are finished. They made 2 mistakes. All right, they've had a bit of a bumpy start, but they haven't exactly had it easy. They're away to Arsenal. Forest are unpredictable. Like, yeah, let's see how they get on in their first January window before we're like, Man United are absolutely finished. Well, they haven't exactly been great for the last decade by their standards, have they? So, like,
the reality is though, with United, like, I don't think them getting rid of him is that big of a deal. They've got their manager in. he's working with the players. I don't think this is going to affect the players in any way, shape, or form. To be honest, and Terry and Double A, they told us that Man U fans are ready for the pain. If that's the case, like that means that there's a high chance you guys finish 9th or 10th this season. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with giving Amarin a chance?
Again, I can only speak for myself, and I will slightly speak for Double A here because he said it live on camera, and I remember him saying it. I am ready for this, and I was maybe a little harsher than what Will was. I think I said it when I went live as soon as the news came out, and I stand by it. I feel that I'm frustrated by the lack of due diligence because I feel that some of the questions that you would be asking of someone, again, and none of us have hired a sporting director. So we are a little bit ignorant to that in the sense of I would be asking for their philosophy on the game, the types of players they like. What do you think of our current manager? A bit like you do in any new job interview. What would be your ideas to, if I'm hiring an editor, I want to see how they edit, ideas they've got for the football terrace, how they could make my content better, how they could, make the content more engaging. I would ask a sporting director about their philosophy of football, how they're going to knit the club together and the departments right, how they see football being played, the right way of growing, the medium to long-term goals. One of the questions would be, we know the manager's under pressure. What type of head coach do you think we need, right? And the answers in that interview would dictate whether or not I employed him. So I think there is criticism for Ineos. I think they've got that wrong. The bit I'm frustrated about more than them getting it wrong since the news is the amount of Man United fans who are not prepared for this journey, who honestly, I think thought, well, we've got a sporting director and new head coach. It's going to be okay now. They are not prepared for how hard this is going to be. I look at all of your clubs, not Real Madrid, of course, Will, because you've not been in this situation. You look at what Chelsea have been through since their genuine club rebuild started 2.5 years ago. You look at since the Kroenkes took over, how long and hard it's been. You look at the first 3 or 4 years of Man City, the mistakes they made, the people that came in, the ones that went out, the signings that didn't work, the money they wasted on Robinhos and Joes and players like this, right? That's not a dig. It's the way it was. Everyone goes through teething problems. What I am happy with, on reflection now the news has come out, is that we have cut ties with somebody who very quickly we've seen, do you know what? We've hired him. We wanted him. We thought it would work. It's not going to. Let's move him on. Ed Woodward made mistake after mistake after mistake for 8 years and never lost his job. It would be more damning to have somebody in who's pulling in a different direction. Somebody that sees it differently, who actually, and again, even from Dan Ashworth's point of view, we've all done this, whether it be a job, a friend, a relationship. You've gone, oh, I like this. I saw someone tweet this the other day, and it was basically saying it's like chasing a baddie on Instagram for a year. But when you actually meet them and start going out with them, you realize they're a bit dry and boring and you don't want to be with them anymore. And I kind of laughed. It was a funny analogy, but there's a truth to it. Maybe also Dan Ashworth may have came in and gone, do you know what? I thought I'd love the idea of rebuilding this. Maybe he's turned up and gone, nice people to like, as in individuals to work with, but I can't work with them professionally. And it's the right thing to move on. The problem with this sacking is it's come the day after an embarrassing defeat. And when you add those two things together, it just, if we'd have beaten Nottingham Forest and Arsenal this week and then sacked Dan Ashworth, the reaction would be different. And that's, yeah, but that's also what you would get is, okay, now beat Arsenal, beat Forest, 1 point off Champions League, and we've got rid of someone who wasn't doing the right thing. We're cooking, bruv. And that's the problem with results-based analysis at this particular stage. I'm also happy that we haven't had a new manager bounce with Amarim and that players aren't running through brick walls in the early stages. I almost like the fact, I don't like losing, but these players are exposing themselves for what's right, what they can do and what they can't do. I didn't predict it would happen against Forest. I didn't predict that Dan Ashworth wouldn't work because I'm not a fortune teller. I get individual match predictions wrong. I might think this player will work and this one will be a flop and it's the other way around. But what I've always known is that over the next 2.5 to 3 years, there's going to be many trials, many tribulations, many ups, many downs. And United fans have got to hold that. We have to develop the thick skin to get through these periods. We've got a massive hole in our ship that could lead to a sinking. And we're trying to fix it whilst we're out in the deep ocean. That's a fucking hard job. You can't take the team away. You can't take it out. You can't take the club away from competing for 2 years and come back after you've built a squad and just been playing friendly games. You can't do what a boxer does. I'm going to have a year out the ring and just train. clear my head, train, work on new techniques, come in fresh. You can't do that. You got to keep playing. And it isn't great that it hasn't worked with Dan Ashworth, but the way it's sort of being twisted, and I'm seeing journalists out there, today it's announced that we've cancelled the Christmas party. This is horrendous that we're cancelling Christmas parties. I'll be honest with you, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about the cancelling of a Christmas party any more than I would if we went out and bought a dog and called it, I hope we win. Do you know what I'm saying? All those things to me.
Why do we even know that they cancel it? Why? We don't even need to know.
I don't care about any of that. I think it's more
if you work for a sports company, things like that happen all the time. It's not again, it's like the Arteta thing with the people stealing things. That happens all the time. It's not really a massive story.
Yeah,
but
Why do we
need to know? You keep talking about the Christmas party. Anyone? I hope they're doing a Christmas party this year. Has anyone ever said literally?
And it's again. I saw another journalist refer to the Ineos as they're just bullies. They don't want to create a family environment. They're just bullies. And I've DM'd that journalist twice saying, I'm just confused. You haven't delved into why you're saying they're bullies. I want to know if they're doing something that is bullying. I'd like to know about it as a Man United fan. But there's also journalists that they're all community noted. They keep writing this shit about how they're trying to get the tax man to pay for the stadium rebuild, which is a massive fabrication. We're paying for our own new stadium. What we're asking the government to do is pump in money to redevelop the area surrounding it, which is basically they're trying to take money away from London and put it into Manchester. How could anyone in Manchester have a problem with that? It's what the northern. Do you want to put this out there? It's what the northern parts of the country have been fighting for 4 or 5 decades to get money out of London and spent in the north of the country. Ineos try to do it, and people go, scumbags. They should use their own money. The question is, hang on, no company should be forced to pump its money into the local development of an area that your government should be pumping money into. It's weird, but there are criticisms to be had, but there's so much fabrication. There's so much overreaction to it. And my only fear, and I heard Mark Goldbridge say this today, and he's right, is that if we don't get a few wins soon, what you will get is the player FC mugs. You'll get the toxic fan mugs. You'll get the individuals that just want attention that will soon start to turn on Amorim. And as soon as that happens, the media pylon will be even more. Doesn't mean we can't circumnavigate our way through it, but essentially the fans, there's already a fire that we're trying to put out. And I just fear that the fans, instead of throwing water or a blanket over the fires, soon are going to start throwing petrol. And as soon as that happens, it becomes 10 times more difficult to fix the situation because the patient wears out. So look, Dan Ashworth being sacked, there's some bad elements to it. There's some positive elements to it. But the meltdown from a lot of Man United fans online, I have to say, has been nothing short of embarrassing, in my opinion. Really, really embarrassing.
But you're a Manchester United fan, though, Terry. So, why should fans not be as upset, or why should they be more patient? I think I know that the manager is just coming in.
There's a big job to do, though, Will.
Of course. But this is the biggest club, arguably, on the planet, right? So I don't think that the fans should be looking at it like, okay, let's just be happy with being shit because this new manager.
But it's not about being happy with being shit. It's the case of, so you've just pointed out you think it's a good thing to sack Dan Ashworth. At the same time, you're saying United fans should be angry. But you've said it's a good thing what they've done. So the point is this. I'm not happy with where we are. But you just said we're the biggest team in England. Therefore, taking it out of 11 years of malpractice, rot, and absolute gross negligence from the owners, it is not a quick fix. And I've known this all along. And do you know how I know it? I'm not special. I don't know more than any other football fan, other than the fact if you read and look at how other giant clubs that have fallen away have rebuilt themselves. If you look at how City have become what they are now, what FSG have done over the last decade or so, what Arsenal started doing 5 years ago. Just look at the recent example of Chelsea and how bad they looked and dysfunctional at times they looked in the first couple of years. Everyone's been through it. Now, Man United's job, as you've just said, is even bigger. Therefore, it's going to take potentially even longer to fix because the scrutiny is so much higher. The amount of shit Ineos are getting compared to what the Glazers got is night and day. And I still don't quite understand why. Rarely would the media attack the owners. Ineos are trying to get us a new stadium. They're trying to improve things. But because they're making cutbacks here and there, they're getting ridiculed for it. Where the Glazers were hemorrhaging billions out the club, putting us into almost financial ruin whilst making millions themselves. And that was ignored by the journalists 9 times out of 10. It's a massive job. I agree that fans shouldn't be happy with where we are. but you have to understand it's going to take a long time
No,
to put
wait,
right.
yes, but Terry, but